everyone, and welcome to another video with me, Umber Rays, and today I want to talk about the 3rd anniversary of Global. More specifically, I would love to do a news coverage video, and I'm sure I recorded that before this. I'm pretty sure. I'm definitely not recording this after. But Global has been through a bit of a rough time lately, and as I've said in the previous video that I definitely recorded before this, and definitely didn't make a joke about it, for the last week I have been off enjoying basically, GDQ. And to prove that I'm not listening to anything currently at the moment, there you go, just because the cord is tangled. But Global has had a bit of a rough time lately, between bugs in the system, some questionable other problems, including things such as the whole 64-bit thing, which, to my knowledge, I wanted to do a video about the 62-bit versus 32-bit, but it was just kind of an unfortunate situation. It left a lot of players in a very shitty situation, which is not being able to play the game. What's more important than anything for a game? That you can actually play it. I think that is really important, because whether a game is enjoyable or not, or good or not, there is nothing really that feels good about just being, unable to play it. If I bought Shadowbringers for the PS4 or the PC and was playing that, and I could just not play it for whatever reason, that's really bad. But not always is the situation that we can exactly figure out who we should blame. For instance, as I am talking about the whole 64 and 32-bit thing just a little bit, the way I understand it is, and if I'm wrong, I apologize, but Global was, or Google is kind of forcing people to do this 64-bit thing, which left a lot of, phones and mobile devices and also emulators out of the loop, and Gummy just didn't quite, I guess, either think that through or didn't have a contingency plan or whatever. But it left a lot of players out of the loop. What really is unfortunate about all of this, of course, is the timing of any of this, because the timing is coming about the same time of the 3rd anniversary of the Global FFBE. And, regardless of my grudges versus Alum and Gummy, them as a company and whatnot, it is a little remiss to say that the anniversary of a game like this should always be a happy time, when a lot of players are excited and enjoying the game and, getting some cool rewards and whatnot. And that seems to be not the case on one specific thing, because something that seems to have fallen through the cracks or just isn't happening is the thing that happened on the JP side, where JP players were rewarded with 3rd anniversary tickets. And these anniversary tickets could be used in a gacha-based system, where you could get UOCs or EX tickets, 5-star EX tickets, all kinds of stuff. And I do remember it well, because, hey, my videos are still up of the 3rd anniversary on the JP side. So I did a whole bunch of polls. It was like a really large amount of stuff, and it was tons of fun to see, what I got, what I didn't get, the joys and the sadness. But Global seems to be being removed of that, and even more so, there seems to be a bit of a controversy about the fact that there seems to be a bigger comeback campaign than there is a campaign for continuing players. And to which that is what this video is about. Basically, the anger about the 3rd anniversary ticket giving outing, as well as the comeback campaign versus the continuing player campaign. To which I would say this, first of all, and I'm going to explain. I'm going to be definitely not partial to one side or the other. This is just my opinion on it, and whether you agree or not, you are welcome to, of course, get angry or be unhappy with it, but these are just my thoughts about it from someone who is now outside the game. First of all, just talking about the comeback rewards. Of course, the comeback rewards are, I feel, need to be better than anything else in the game, for continuing players, because continuing players, you have played the game and you have been getting rewards this entire time. The idea of a comeback campaign is to really get players who have been out of the game back into it, which, trust me, if you are someone who has left the game for any period of time, it is easy to come back and feel that you have missed a large amount of stuff. With Global, even more so, because the last, let's say, 4 months, which I think you have to be gone for approximately 3 months. It might be a month, it might be 3 months. It doesn't really matter too much, because if you haven't gotten Xenos, if you haven't gotten Esther, it's not even the feeling, or it's not even the fact that, oh, you can still do stuff. Well, hooray. It's that feeling of being really behind and really out of the meta and missing a lot of the new characters and not having those up banner rates and everything. All of that is essentially gone. And here, I mean, there are a lot of 10+1s. There are, you know, there are a lot of rewards in there, but all those rewards could be relatively inefficient towards old players anyway, because they don't necessarily guarantee them being able to get back very easily in the campaign, or the game itself, and into the meta, which, regardless of whether or not the meta is important to you, a current player, it could be important to someone who is looking to get back into it. Just feeling, for any game, being gone for a long time in any game that has a progression feel, there can be a mass amount of changes in mechanics, or potentially what is important, which, you know, Trust Masteries, Super Trust Masteries, and equipment that was given out during events, missing all of that is a huge deficit, and a bigger deficit than I think most people can realize. But regardless, I think that the campaign is important for a couple of reasons to the current players, and maybe or maybe not this will, you know, make you feel better about it or make you feel worse, but again, just my take on it. And that is the fact that you kind of need, if Brave Exvius is really going to survive and grow, more importantly, it kind of needs a larger player base. And there has been some major excises of people, the recent ban waves, the general frustration of players. There have been a lot of players who have probably left and do not want to come back without good incentive, or people who just do not want to come back. In which case, you need new players. There is a percentage of players that, you know, are out there doing advertising, but you might get someone new, you might get a new Clayek in the community, or you might get someone else, which I did see Clayek's post about some of the stuff. I would like to thank Clayek for being a voice of reason in a lot of times, although he, so long as he is, you know, still calling out Gummy on their shit, which I haven't paid enough attention to, but that's okay. Anyway, when I just think it's important for a game, any gacha game or any subscription game, to have a constant flow of at least some new players in over some period of time. And Brave Exvius on the JP side does not feel like that anymore, just to be clear. It very much feels like a small group of players who is still playing, and that it is really, really hard to coax new players into the game, which is why there is such a push right now on the JP side to try and get as much money as they can from their current player base, because they need that income to continue to do stuff. Here, again, I just think it's important to have a growing community with new people coming in, or potentially old people coming in. There are a lot of great people in the Brave Exvius community that are either there or, well, I guess have gone now, in which case they are outside the community. But anyway, having those players in the community is a big deal. It is good for current players who feel like they are missing people. I have even gotten a fair amount of YouTube comments saying, "Well, is Umber coming back?" You know, all of this stuff. I mean, no, but that goes to show that having friends in the community who play the same game as you, there is an importance to community there, and not just old community, new community too. So I do fully support the idea of Gummy just trying to get more players into the game, be they new or old. Either way, I think it's a really good idea to try and push that for more players. And old players, again, you have gotten so many resources over all that time. Whether you've gotten anything good or not is, kind of just regardless or not important, because RNG is RNG, and RNG will be as good to you as it is to anyone else at any given time, which means it's random. But the thing that really caused a big stink on Global was the idea of the third anniversary tickets not being the same as JP, not getting in a certain or amount of them based on the number of login days or your rank or anything like that. So regardless of the exact details, it is, now, Global is just not going to get the amount of tickets that JP players got. And to some extent, I have very strong opinions on this. First of all, I don't think this is bad necessarily, and I know that will vilify me immediately in a lot of people's minds, but I really don't think that this is a bad idea because of the way JP trended. JP gave out a lot of rewards, but it had a smaller player base than Global does. 100% certain on this one. So JP has to incentivize more, also because in Japan there is a lot more competition. There is a lot more fierce competition in terms of gacha games. There are a lot of gacha games in Japan, and I will be honest, in my years spending time here, I have only ever come across one person who has played Brave Exvius who was not at a Brave Exvius related event. Even the Osaka Square Enix Brave Exvius Cafe was pretty much dead most days, except for really the only 2 days was the first day where it had an okay amount of people, and the other day when female special cosplayers visited. Those were the only days that the Brave Exvius Cafe was just booked solid. And when I say other days were not booked solid, I mean they were really empty. They were easily walk-in at almost any time. But JP has to incentivize its players to try and get it. So there was kind of a reason for it, but there was also a backlash. And the backlash is, as you can see in the summon festivals, there were just too much. There have been too many rewards given out, and they were too good for too long on the JP side, which led the JP side to get summon festivals. And while summon festivals are not entirely bad, the removal of the UOC has been a sticking point for a lot of players and seems to be a big consideration for a lot of global players. The thing that I hear all the time is global players, I see a lot of the time, is that global players do not want Summon Fests. They don't want Summon Fests there, in which case I have to remind you again, Summon Fests are not necessarily bad. They are better value. They are better quality characters at a higher drop rate, even though the drop rate is still bad. 5% is really terrible still. It's just Summon Festivals. The big problem that most people have with Summon Festivals is you just can't UOC the characters. So if you want a Zidane at this point or a CG Cecil on the JP side, you cannot get them with UOCs. You have to pull them with some kind of in-game resource. Mostly Lapis or tickets, but tickets are more rare nowadays on the JP side. The thing here is, I feel like the real problem is that global players, I get it. The more resources you have, the more gacha you can do, the more fun you can have, maybe the more characters you can get. There's a lot of reasons why players would want this. But again, with all of the good things, there's always a bad thing, and rewards are a double-edged sword in a free-to-play game. It does not matter to the free-to-player in the sense of them getting a mass amount of rewards. They weren't spending money anyway. Where it does kind of hurt is with the people who do pay money. If you give people who do pay money too many extra resources, they will stop spending money, because this is not a need that you need. You do not need to play Brave Exvius. It is a form of entertainment. It is not something you need to survive, like food or water or anything like that. And even then, giving players less of a reason to spend means they will go spend elsewhere. Also, potentially just getting way too much stuff is a problem for just making the game boring. There are a lot of things that can work against something, and the amount of rewards that, again, if we are to take what Alum says at face value and say that the amount of rewards they gave out have just killed their profit margin a mass amount, even though I think also company policy has cut in a lot into players' confidence, there needs to be, like, you just got to understand the idea that it can happen to Global, and it may not even be Summon Festivals, it may be something under a different name. But the monochrome that Global is a different game from JP is a little bit kind of dumb, because, whoa, it tore some felt off of something. Weird. And that disrupted my train of thought. Global doesn't have these things, and it's continuously said that it wants to be a different game. And part of that will be not making the same mistakes that JP made. The special week in Arena has not popped up in Global yet. A massive source of UOC tickets for a ton of players on the JP side, allowing them to stack them out, causing the problem. The amount of UOCs that were given out with the third Annie. Okay, yes, by now, maybe people have spent quite a bit of them, but there's still the problem that UOCs are just out there in a abundance. And I do know that there are some English-speaking JP players who have a stockpile of 78 UOCs. I could see how that could cut into resources a bit, or spending, definitely, especially if a player is maybe a mid-level and not a high-level player who needs everything. So, yeah, on the one hand, I totally understand why players want to get, especially free-to players, want to get a lot of resources. We want these characters that we like. We want, the super TMRs so we can do content easier. But at the same time, and if you're looking at comparing it to, Global deserves it as much as JP, that may be true. I mean, Global is a bigger player base, so there isn't as much of a need to to reward the players as much, even though I would say that Global has had does a fair job of rewarding its player base anyway, who continually play the game. So that is maybe an unpopular opinion, but there it is. Just like Jeff Goldblum is. I do think that it may more be a way to potentially remove the possibility of having to do some invest by just not giving as many rewards, meaning that people need to still spend, and then there isn't the desperation move to do it. Again, it could be all, not true what I am saying, but this is a take that I have on it. And both here's the big question for Global players, and this is the question that you really need to ask yourselves as players. Do you want a future with Summon Festivals with un-UOCable characters and characters that you will want, or do you want a less rewards but no Summon Festivals? Or no non-UOCable characters? Do you want no shady tactics? Do you want not the Luna banner to happen to you guys? If you want that stuff, you are going to have to compromise somewhere. You are going to have to meet Gummy halfway on some things. It is not all one side or the other. Both sides need each other. The Gummy needs you guys to, or at least some percentage of you, to spend money on the game to support the game so the game keeps going, because games are not these magical things that just pop out of thin air with, just magic. It takes a lot of money to make games nowadays, regardless of what they are gacha or not, and maintaining them, and maintaining the servers or whatever. And at the same time, while Gummy does need people to spend money on the game, players do need Gummy to make the game. Without them, there would not be this game. Maybe there would be something different, but that's very big hypothetical as opposed to the actual reality of the situation. So in the end of this video, because this video is just getting too long now, honestly, I can understand why the player base has just been building these expectations of getting a ton of rewards, just like JP. But listen, you guys, if you don't want the bad things to happen that happened on JP to happen to Global, you are going to have to accept the idea that Global is going to have to be a different game in terms of some of the positive things too. Anyway, that is all for this video, and I will see you in the next video. And I totally didn't choose the Shinra because of greedy corporation stuff. But hey, thematic music, gotta love it. See you next time.